The Clemson Tigers might actually have the best wide receiver core in the entire country.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And yeah, I know what they have at Ohio State. I know. And so maybe Kenton can talk up the Buckeyes a little bit with Jeremiah Smith and company. But thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. Shout out to the everydayers. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. So it looks as though that monumental House versus NCAA settlement might be a few weeks away from getting finalized, but the judge wants them to clarify and tweak a few things. And after looking this over, I definitely think they need to tweak a few things. The transfer portal opens on April 15th, but if you listen to Mario Cristobal, head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, the portal never really closed. But let's start with a team that doesn't use the portal a whole lot, but they did dip in this offseason. So Kenton Gibbs, the Clemson Tigers, just had their spring game over the weekend. One of the first wave. There's a lot more coming up this weekend. Now, Clemson, like a lot of other teams this year, even though they had the spring game, it was not televised. They did have a pretty full stadium, though, there at Death Valley. So a lot of the feedback that's coming out of Clemson, South Carolina, is that their wide receiver core looked incredible. In fact, Dabo Swinney has said that he's got 6 wideouts on his roster that he believes are capable starters in college and that are going to make the NFL in the future. He believes that Tristan Smith, along with Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco Jr., TJ Moore, Tyler Brown, and Cole Turner, they're going to come in what he refers to as waves of terror when you rotate those guys in and out of games. So, fact or fiction, would you take what Clemson has over what Ohio State has from top to bottom?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. But I think the last words you said there is what gives me the ability to say Clemson has the edge here. What I take from top to bottom, right? If you're talking about the first 3 guys in, your typical starters, I've got to give Ohio State that edge because, again, Jeremiah Smith is so far above everybody else that he brings Ennis and those other guys up at Ohio State. He just does. But then you look over at Clemson and you say top to bottom. If I'm talking about 2 waves of guys who all have had production at least some modicum of decency, if you're talking about guys, I want you to think about this for a second, Dono. Of all of their leading receivers last year, the ones that have wide receiver next to their name, I believe all of their top 5 except 1 came back. The tight end, Brenning School, is the only one that I know left, but he has tight end by his name, not receiver. This receiving core is going to be dynamic. I talked about the fact that Williams was the showstopper, and he was going to be the guy ahead of Brown last year, and everybody called me crazy, and they're saying, well, Kenton, Brown was injured last year. He's going to be back and healthy. Williams is still Williams, but Wesco is the one out of that first group that's like, wait, what do y'all mean he didn't know the playbook last year? What do you mean he was ripping off Chucks like he was and didn't really fully know all of the playbook in a meaningful way? That young man is going to be something special. And then you talk about the second wave, again, of guys who have played meaningful football. I am going to tell you, I'd be hard-pressed to say that there's a definitive edge either way. I wouldn't be upset if you said it was 1A, 1B. But if you're telling me that you would prefer Clemson over Ohio State, you're saying I want proven product over potential. And I'm always going to be okay with that. As much as we talk about potential and all that, we see it every year in all of these drafts, the NBA and NFL drafts. We see it all the time throughout all the leagues where it's like, oh, yeah, they took a flyer on this guy because they thought he was going to be good. And then the steal of the draft is always the guy that produced a ton, but everybody said, oh, he's a little too short. Oh, he runs a little too slow. Oh, he can't jump as high. And it's like, well, turn the damn film on. What does he do with the film on? Clemson's guys have the better film so far. Again, potential and upside, you could talk me into Ohio State. Top 3 alone, you don't even have to talk me into it. I'm taking Ohio State. But top to bottom, those 6, give me Clemson.
And even like the top three that are all returning from Clemson last season. Antonio Williams, 904 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns last year. That was an insane year. Wesco, 708 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. TJ Moore, 651 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Cole Turner, who was like, the last guy on that list who's probably going to have a good year coming up, 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they return a bunch of that production. And also, like, Clemson's got the combination where, Cade Klubnik, he's going to be one of the more talked about returning quarterbacks in the country this year. Of course, DJ Lagway at Florida is really high up on everybody's list. A lot of people are curious about Carson Beck at Miami, who's not actually throwing yet, coming off of his elbow injury. So there's a little bit of enigma still there. But, I mean, everyone seems to agree that Klubnik, he's the guy who, like, should be on a preseason Heisman list with a few others, right? And a big part of that stability with the coaches, same offensive coordinator, same head coach, same quarterback, that trinity returning, and so many of his weapons being back this year.
And not only so many of the weapons, I think one of the biggest things that's going to go into settling this debate next year, a lot of people like to take things out of context. And taking things out of context in this realm is definitely going to help Clemson next year because, like you talked about, Cade Klubnik is not only one of the best. I give him credit and I give him his praise as I gave him much lament and torment about his decision-making early in his career. Something clicked. That light went off, and he made a bunch of really good decisions at the end of last year. His decision-making and processing has hit exponentially better levels than it was originally coming in, and he's combining that with the fact that we already knew he's a stellar athlete. He's a white guy that nobody says is sneaky fast. Think about that for a second. That's the type of athlete this young man is, right? So you get those two things together, and you're going to have much, much more production than you'll probably see out of the top 6 of Ohio State. But again, that's not even a factor or feat of their outright talent advantage over Ohio State. It'll much more be an advantage of, hey, our quarterback's is better than your guy. We don't know who Ohio State's guy is. Everybody's saying, oh, we know this guy's looking great in spring ball and he's going to be the guy. How many times have we seen that scenario play out where it's, oh, this guy's definitely going to be the guy. And then through fall camp, that other guy seems to be the guy that seems to be the first one on the field in the first game and whatnot. So Cade Klubnik is a proven product. He's going to help out this wide receiving core in making this argument for we're the best in the country. And again, that continuity of he's played with them. He knows what West Coast 9 looks like. He knows what Williams drag looks like. He knows what Brown's pogo looks like. He knows what everybody's routes look like at Clemson in a way that whoever is the starting quarterback at Ohio State will not have with his guys.
So in the case of Clemson, they've got a quarterback who should be one of the very best in the country in Klubnik. They've got a receiver room that should be among the very best in the country. How many other position groups in the ACC can we say that about? I mean, I can definitely say for Miami, probably one of the best offensive lines in the country. I'm pretty confident about that heading into 2025 with big Markel Bell, probably Matthew McCoy at left guard, James Brockermeyer at center, Inez Cooper right guard, big CeCe Maui Noah at right tackle. Like that, Miami should be up there from an offensive line standpoint. Any other units come to mind in the conference? And maybe Clemson has another one where you say this could be the very best in the country.
I thought Sammy Brown and that Clemson linebacker corps was going to be a wrecking crew next year. But then I thought to myself, wasn't there a team in the ACC that ran the ball all over them easily? And that's when it hit me. The Louisville Cardinals in that backfield to take out.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
That's a good one.
Imagine saying, oh, God, this freshman from Louisville, he's going to have to jump in the portal. He's too good. And then his backup is also giving you the beats. His backup, the guy that you're like, he can't stay there. He's too good. His backup is giving, I'm telling you right now, that Louisville running game is going to be such a prolific help to Miller Moss because there are 2 scenarios in which quarterbacks in these new situations perform very well. Number one, you're a generational talent. We saw it from Cam Newton. We saw it from Justin Fields. We saw it from a bunch of guys who were top 5 picks in terms of like transferring in and being good year one. But you know what the other indicator? Oh, Cam Ward is another one. I'm sorry. How did I forget Cam Ward? Another guy, generational. You don't see Cam Wards in every draft. But then you look at the other situation. Is there a path to a quarterback being successful in year one if he doesn't have that generational talent? Yes. The path is the guys around him being so good that it's like, hey, we don't need you to be a quarterback we win because of. We just need you to be a guy that we win with. Don't be a guy that we have to say, please stop turning the ball over, and they'll be okay. And Louisville's running back duo, I mean, you look at those two, and what can you not say about those two guys? Both of them have excellent contact balance in terms of they're not the biggest, most powerful guys in the world, but you know what they are going to do? They're going to get you that extra yardage. They're always going to fall forward. They're always going to find a way to just lean the forward to make a 3-yard gain, a 5-yard gain, so on and so forth. And then you combine that in with Brom and his ability to call up these games. I'm telling you right now, do not be shocked if we see that duo both go for over 1,200 yards combined. Or 1,200 yards each, rather, not combined.
Right, so 1,200 each. I got what you meant there, and I'm not going to call you on that. Well, the other thing that's going to be happening in just a matter of days, we're 6 days away from the next transfer portal date. Now, if you listen to the head coach at Miami, transfer portal never actually closes. We'll explain why. And also we'll explain why this might be like the final really, really, really crazy transfer portal period coming up next week. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, check out our other shows. Kenton, Gibbs, and Grayson Boone talk everything NC State on Locked On Wolfpack. I talk everything Miami on Locked On Canes. So Kenton, earlier this week after Miami football practice, Mario Cristobal taking questions from the media, and a reporter from the Miami Herald asked him, like, how do you get ready for the next, over the next few days, how do you get ready for the next transfer portal and the chaos that comes with it? And Cristobal's answer was, in his mind, the portal never actually closes, he says. The portal is always open, regardless of the dates that are prescribed. Everybody is in the portal. That is the reality of where we are in college football. You adapt or you die, he said. Now, Cristobal emphasized, because a lot of other coaches have had their complaints about the portal, and, oh my gosh, my guys are going to be tampered with, so we got to close our practices. We can't have a spring game, this and that. Like, Cristobal said it plainly, I'm not complaining. Like, we have to adapt and thrive in this era. Adapt or die, he said. So, and I know a lot of people are taking what he said to be, oh, you see, Miami's in that tampering business. But the other side of that, Kenton, is you have to realize you're a head coach of a major college football program. Your players are constantly being tampered with. That's what it means. When you say the portal is always open, not only are you, maybe back channeling players on other rosters, that happens all over the country, but believe me, your guys are getting back channeled. So you're constantly having to not only recruit others, but recruit your own players to stay around. That's the reality of the transfer portal.
I want to make something very clear to everybody here. Turnabout is indeed fair play. If you are that terrified, if you think, oh, Mario Cristobal in Miami, they're doing all this tampering, tell your boys to get to tampering. Tell your boys get to calling. Tell your, hey, listen, they're not following the rules over there, and either we're going to cheat with them or we're going to pay. Or, for those who are going to say, oh, can we have integrity and we're so much better than that, we're so much above that. Sure, go show me a school with no scandals ever, and I'll show you a school that doesn't exist. But let's just pretend for a minute. Your school is that much better than everybody else, and you're that much more righteous and upright and moral. Go report them. Go report them. If you believe, hey, Mario Cristobal tampered with the kid from Wisconsin, that's how he's down there now. Well, Badgers, show and prove. Your AD is a former head football coach.
That's right.
Barry Alvarez, go do the thing. That's, so yes, the portal is always open. He's absolutely right about that. And yes, you either adapt or die. What is confusing about that? What is confounding, or what is so, oh my God, we just don't understand why he would say such a thing? I do, because he knows the reality of the game now. He gets paid millions of dollars to do this. Dono and I do not get paid millions of dollars to talk about this. And yet even we can see, that transfer portal might be a thing you want to meaningfully address. That may be a thing that you either fill holes out of, or at bare minimum, keep your boys in-house. Keep your guys, hey, listen, we love you. We're going to develop you. You may not be playing this year, but stick with us. You're going to be the guy, and you're going to get all the NIL you could ever imagine. You're going to have all those things happen, and you're going to be developed out of places getting you ready for the NFL. How about it? Whatever the pitch is, whatever the deal is that you tell these guys, hey, this is why you want to stay here, you figure that out. And then, keep your guys in the portal if you're not going to use it. But again, that's going to handicap you. That's going to put you at a definite disadvantage to everybody else. So Mario Cristobal didn't say anything wrong. He didn't say anything that's factually inaccurate. I mean, what's the average turnover rate in college football right now? 40% of rosters or something like that? Something insane along those lines that get in the portal at some point in time. So what are we really doing here if we're saying, hey, a thing that accounts for 2 out of every 5 players, we don't need to, figure out a way to utilize that tool for our benefit? If you are not using it, you are tying one hand behind your back trying to win a fight. And I get it. Yeah. We all saw Popeye after he ate his spinach, but his bicep wasn't that big. Use both hands.
Well, and I'll be honest, like a lot of people, when they heard his comments, they kind of took it as like him being on the offensive, like talking about the moves Miami's making. I took it more as on the defensive, that like, believe me, this stuff is happening behind the scenes with our own players. The way other coaches have talked about, hey, like, Matt Rule was one of the friends. A lot of teams have done this now, canceled their spring games because they didn't want to, put their players on TV to get tampered with. I think that was Mario's way of addressing that. You adapt or die, right? And
ain't nobody trying to take Lil Mahomes Jr. from over there in Nebraska. Ain't nobody trying to take that boy. Leave him alone. Leave us alone, Matt Rule. Okay, you ain't got nothing worth plundering over there. Let's be very honest.
It is a little strange how he lives his entire life as a Pat Mahomes cosplay. Like it's very odd.
It's so weird. Why is your drip exactly like his? Same sleeve, same numbers, same headband. Ew, brother. Ew. What's that, brother? It's gross.
But okay, here's why I wonder if this is going to be potentially like the last really crazy transfer portal period. Like I had a conversation about this recently on the Portal podcast with our guy Brian Smith. Who mentioned, like, I basically asked him, is this going to be the craziest portal ever coming up in April? And he said, or it's now April, but coming up later on this month. And he said he doesn't think it's going to reach like the craziness of just the sheer number of players who enter, but he thinks it's going to be really bitter in terms of players getting induced to enter, right? Big stars around the country getting back channeled by other programs. Hey, maybe a little bird told me we could get you this NIL deal if you come to our school. So he thinks it's going to be a really bitter one with a lot of, tampering accusations around the country. And here's the thing, Kenton. I assuming, and we're going to talk more about the House settlement, assuming this thing passes it to the form that it's been written, without drastic changes coming down, this could be like maybe the last really crazy NIL transfer portal, because NIL in the near future is going to be more your baseline comes from the revenue sharing agreement. And I think guys understand if you're going to get your last big deal, like with a collective or a third party, you better get that big deal now, because that big deal may not be there, in a few weeks' time once the House settlement passes. So that may be another incentive for players to jump and lock in their final deal with that car dealership that's paying you $600,000 to write one tweet, like something like that. This may be the last chance to get that.
I'm going to say something here, and I don't want people to get offended, but I know they are, and that's okay. I thought that the portal was going to be a problem for all of like 3-4 years, and then these young men and women were going to see like, oh, this ball game is not what we thought. The grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. What I underestimated is how much bad counsel is in these young men and women's ears saying, hey, you go over there, you're going to get paid. Hey, you go over there, they're going to take care of you. You go over there. There are people in the portal, which is, and I can go on a tirade about this for forever and a day, but I know we got to go to break here so we can cut out after this. I really and truly think that the NCAA should have an objective third party that is not there to represent the NCAA, not there to represent any university, that just watches the film and says, hey, this is the level I think you can play. This is the level. Because it's too many people in the portal that's like, where does it get better for you? Where does it get better? What happens to you in the portal, brother? How many times have we seen players who have been all conference performers, who have been conference player of the year? We talked about it earlier in terms of basketball. Of 30 conferences, 1/3 of the players of the year were in the portal. And so many of these guys are going to go to universities where you then put up 5 points a year or 5 points a game, and that's it. You go from being the guy that's trusted to take the shots to barely getting PT or barely getting your shots up. So, I really and truly look at this thing and say the NCAA needs an objective third party to come in, evaluate film, and say, hey, I think that you're ready. I think there's a jump available for you, as opposed to, having nobody who is working in these athletes' best interest to tell them the truth about what they are, not just some agent saying, hey, I heard that over at Xavier, they're giving out this type of deal. Over at Texas, they're giving out this type of deal. Miami's got all these things on South Beach going. These deals are getting crazy. I think somebody needs to step in that regard.
Well, coming up next is the $2.8 billion House versus NCAA settlement about to change all of this. And is it going to pass the way it's currently written? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. So the latest hearing, Kenton, on House versus NCAA, overseen by the Honorable Judge Claudia Wilkin, concluded on Monday afternoon. And I've read several different post-hearing breakdowns, some of them a lot more detailed than others, but it seems like a lot of the legal analysts and sports analysts can't seem to agree how much Judge Wilkin really likes the way it's currently written, right? Because she did say, and this was her quote, I think it's a good settlement. Don't quote me on that, she said. But then she also had critiques about it. And to me, if I read the language in plain English, it sounds to me like Judge Wilkin will not, in a few weeks, pass the settlement if the lawyers don't tweak a few things. Others say, maybe that's just her kind of bluffing and she'll pass it anyway. But there's a few things that Judge Wilkin takes issue with. First of all, this idea that under the settlement, athletes will have to report any third-party NIL deals greater than $600, and that these could get scrutinized and potentially rejected. Now, the idea behind that, I think it's a noble idea, Kenton, because most of the money that athletes are going to make is going to come through the revenue sharing agreement, right? With every school will have up to a little more than $20 million to share among their athletes. That's where the bulk of their NIL money is going to come from. So the third-party deals are going to become more of an icing on the cake situation. But the idea of potentially capping those at $600, the idea is we're going to avoid, schools basically, laundering the money and skirting around the rules that, hey, You can get Ed's gas station is going to give you a $6 million NIL deal. How amazing is that? But I think the point being, and Olivia Dunn was one of those who actually argued against this and made a statement against it, is the idea of like trying to define an athlete's value at a cap of $600. It seems a little ludicrous because, yeah, there are people out there, Dunn, the Cavender twins at Miami, who have whose brand names and name, image, and likeness have been worth a lot more than that.
Before LeBron James ever stepped on the NBA court, he signed with Nike.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk recently, 20-something years after that original deal was done, about why LeBron did it. Did he want to be like Jordan? Did he have some ulterior motive? Did he just like the shoes? Whatever. You know what LeBron said in his interview with Pat McAfee? They gave me $90 million. That's why I signed with him. Before this young man had played an NBA game,
wow,
he could have been, with all due respect to this young man, 6'9" Sebastian Telfair. And then what? Right? But Nike got to determine, hey, this is what we believe you're valued at. This is what we're going to pay you. If Ed's gas station got $6 million to give away, and they choose to give it away to some 6'5" point guard on Southeast Midwest Missouri's women's basketball team, that is their money to do with as they please. I'm sorry to tell you. Oh, well, it's not fair, and you should have to make a deal that's commensurate with the market value. Since when have we ever in America decided, hey, everything has to be fair and even with the market? Not to talk politics or anything like that, but did we have anything that says, hey, the wages have to keep up with the cost of living? Everything has to be fair and even and equal? No. Our dads could have second families off of mailman. You know what? We're not going to go there. But the reality of this thing is simple. If somebody decides, hey, we want to pay little Dono X amount to be our striker, guess what? Y'all aren't going to turn him down. You're not going to say, oh, our house doesn't need to be any bigger. We don't need any more money. We don't need anything else. You're going to say, hey, son, if they're going to pay you and that's where you want to be, that's where you feel like you develop as a soccer player, go there. And so on and so forth. So I really and truly, when I look at this settlement, that's the ridiculous part of it. And then the other ridiculous part of it, what do you do with the deals that were already brokered? For Bryce Underwood, who already signed for $12 million allegedly being the number. And trust me, I tell y'all when I have sources close to a situation and when I don't. That one, I have people very close to it that are like, yeah, that's about the floor of the deal. I said, the floor? They said, yeah, that's about it. I said, oh my God. And what are you going to tell him? Oh, you can only have, we're going to take you from 12 million to 600 times 4, 2,400. Yeah, sure. I bet that's going to work out just fine. I'm sure he will not be motivated to fight tooth and nail and hair follicle and every damn thing else to prevent his $4 million a year or $3 million a year from going down to 600 a year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that Judge Wilkin has concerns about is, what the new scholarship limit and imposing roster limits is going to do. Cause a lot of, because the whole spirit of the student athlete thing is walk-ons, and a lot of walk-ons are already being told by their schools, like, hey, because of the scholarship, the new format and the roster restrictions, like, we can't have you back next year. And obviously they're not necessarily the ones who bring in most of the money, but I think she is concerned about preserving some of that. And so, I just wonder how serious like her threats are, because it seems like the lawyers for the plaintiffs for the House side are not really interested in reworking any of this. They've already worked on this for years, and they've needed, over 100 universities to essentially agree on this. So it seems like in their minds, they feel like it's done. The judge doesn't think it should be done. So I wonder if she'll pass it with no changes.
No, I highly doubt this gets passed with no changes. I very highly doubt that. For the people who are like, oh, she's bluffing. What does she gain by bluffing? Just out of curiosity, what does the judge actually gain here from this tactic? Because I could understand if there was like a situation where she was incentivized to be on one side or the other here, but I don't see any material gain. And if you do, please comment below and tell us, hey, this is what the judge has to gain. I personally don't see it. So with that in mind, I mean, with all due respect to the walk-ons, and I mean this as respectfully as possible, like you said, Dono, you're not the ones bringing in the money. As much as we love movies like Rudy and all that good stuff, okay, all right. And, I know you're a Miami fan, Dono, so that movie might make you throw up in your mouth a little bit. I get it. But he's not the one bringing in the ticket sales. The walk-ons are not the ones driving all these massive TV deals. We had a segment about who has the best wide receiver core, and how many walk-ons did we mention there? You get what I'm saying? Like that, I'm sorry, and I really do. Trust me, I played with guys who went on to walk on and go earn the scholarship and all that. I was a guy who came in on scholarship, had to be medically retired. I get it. I do. But at the end of the day, in some of these deals and some of the way that these things are shaken out, you cannot please everybody with everything. There is no 100% perfect solution that includes everybody, that wraps everybody in and comes in complete fairness. I mean, for crying out loud, that earlier in this segment, we talked about one player getting a $12 million deal. That is as much as some teams' entire offense or defense will get paid this year. And really beyond what a lot of teams' entire offense and defense will get paid this year if we're including group of five. So, it's one of those things where it's like, can't please everybody, can't make it all perfect and fair. That just ain't how this thing is going to work out. That's how the cookie is probably going to crumble.
Yeah, and so just so I'm clear on this, because I am not a lawyer. Like I guess they don't technically need the judge's full approval to pass the settlement, but they certainly want it. So Wilkin, the judge, still wants to know what happens if she or another judge decides that a future objector has a significant problem to merit a change in the agreement. Kessler, one of the lawyers, says a judge would then be allowed to terminate the settlement. So maybe so. But Judge Wilkin, this according to USA Today, is interested in approving parts of the universal multi-case settlement. But NCAA lawyer Rakesh Kilaru says NCAA and the conferences will not be interested in a partial settlement. They want full approval or not. So they're not, doesn't sound like they're interested in making any tweaks. It's you take it or leave it. Looks like where we're at right now.
Yeah, we're playing the giant game of chicken here. And if House and company don't need the full judge's approval here, I think, again, what do you gain from the bluff? What do you gain?
Yeah, well, we'll certainly talk more about this in a few weeks, if this gets passed or not. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. Make sure you're checking out all the awesome shows on the channel, including Locked On NFL Draft. Guys, for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.